Meanwhile, Governor Diko Rada of Katsina State has announced that the late ex-president Muhammadu Buhari will be buried at his hometown in Daura on Tuesday. The governor stated this while briefing newsmen on Monday at the government house in Katsina. The governor said the decision followed consultations with the family and people around in London, noting that the former president's corpse will arrive in the state 12 p.m. on Tuesday, with the burial following at 2 p.m. in Daura. Governor Rada condoled with the family of the late president and people of Katsina State and Nigeria. He has since arrived in Daura, leading a delegation of top state government officials on a condolence visit. So far, former Ogun State Governor Ibukunle Amosun and former Governor Nasir El-Rufai of Kaduna State have joined other mourners at the late president's house in Daura. Let's now cross live to my colleague Jamil Mabai, who has been in Daura, the hometown of late President Muhammadu Buhari, a very beloved town of the former president. Thank you for joining us tonight. Talk to us about the preparations ahead of tomorrow's burial. What is the general mood like?
The preparation, like you said, this afternoon, the Governor Diko Rada, in company of Kaduna State, former Governor of Kaduna State, El-Rufai, and Amosun were in Daura, where they went around to find a befitting place where the burial prayers can take place. And also within the presidential residence, they have identified a certain area where the president will be buried. And also, the mood has been that of grief and pain, although some of the families are yet to arrive in Daura, but by tomorrow latest, most of the family, or virtually all the family members, will be in Daura, and all other guests from the federal government, state governors, and other people from different parts of the state, different states will troop into Daura. So tomorrow is going to be a very busy day. The city or the local government Daura is going to go agog. And also the governors highlighted that two presidents from two other countries have confirmed that they will be coming for the burial, but he did not mention the name of the president that will be joining the burial ceremony. And also, he confirmed that President Bola Tinubu will also be there, at the burial ceremony. So it's been a lot of preparation for the state government in collaboration with the federal government, and also with security personnel working around the clock to ensure safety of the people, and with the kind of the kind of guests that will be coming tomorrow. I know the security is going to be very tight, and but for the family, it's another pain, another day to remember that their father, their son, their uncle is no longer with them, and it's going to be a very sad day for the family as well.
Would expect more presidents to be at the burial, both former and current presidents. But let's hear who among the family members or clansmen you have been talking to. Any other information, aside what you've shared, coming directly from the family? And you can add to that some of the big names. We know that former governor of Kaduna State is already on the ground. Are there other names that are stood out for you as well?
Yeah, former Kaduna State Governor also, was on ground, Bella Masari, and the former Aviation Minister was also on ground. And we were able to have an exclusive interview with one of the eldest, I think, sister to the late president, whom she called on Nigerians to please forgive her brother. And why the call? Because some certain people have been saying all sorts of negative things, maybe on the president, and she says he's finally, he's finally there. She's calling on everyone, every Nigerian that must have been hurt by the president. She's calling on them to please forgive the president. We're working on that particular video from her. It will be ready any moment from now. So far, this is what we have. And tomorrow, that's when we will get to interview all the VVIPs that will be around, some of the governors, the ministers, the family members that are close, both close family members and, extended family members. We'll get to interview and talk to them tomorrow.
Jamil, thank you for the coverage. I expect we'll get further information tomorrow in the course of the burial. Do stay safe as you cover the burial of the former president. We continue the conversation now on the life and times of former President Muhammadu Buhari, and joining me to do that is policy analyst Dr. Boniface Chezie, as well as journalist Majid Jamil. It's a pleasure to have you both here tonight. We only have Dr. Boniface for now. As soon as Majid joins in, we'll bring him into the conversation. You heard my colleague as to the presence already in Daura, and of course there's been a lot of tribute through the day since the news broke. Some have described the late president as a unifier. How do you describe him?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Well, incidentally, I came close to being on his cabinet. I have a boss, Alhaji Mutalab, who was my boss at UBA and has given him my papers. Now I came out, I was in fact shortlisted to be a minister. And in fact, when Kachugu had some issues with them and then was going to be removed, I was also headhunted to be his replacement. So I fairly have, but I haven't been close to him. But I see him as somebody from a distance, somebody who is Spartan. Spartan in the sense that he doesn't look like somebody who is materialistic. That's what definitely you get that impression. You also feel, you think also that he's somebody who's a bit stern. And so you take that, but then if you go beyond that, he looks like somebody who's laid back. So he's laid back, and so to that extent, it means that some of the responsibilities he had, so you wonder to what extent he was on top of responsibilities, because you can have ministers, you can delegate to them, but then you should, you still ultimately you are accountable. And so there are some issues. So for instance, if you take when he was elected after his election, and how he took such a long time to appoint his ministers, and when he was even interrogated and asked who pressurized him, and he said ministers are just noise makers, that those who did the work are the civil servants. But it took him quite a long time. He was going all over the place. And then, of course, he had also these health issues.
I guess you would go for, Doc, I guess you would go for controversial as against unifier if I get where you're headed with your commentary. But let's bring in Majid Jamil, who is a journalist operating here in Nigeria. Majid, thank you for giving us your time. Let's talk about some of former President and now late President, his policies. How much of far-reaching effects would you say they had on the teeming Nigerian populations beyond the controversies of his two-term?
Yeah, I pray that Almighty Allah grant Muhammadu Buhari Al-Jannah Firdaus and give the family and the Nigerians the fortitude to bear the loss. He did his best for Nigeria, no doubt. He was, one of the two lucky Nigerians to have had that kind of opportunity of leading Nigeria as a military dictator and also as a civilian elected president. The other person is Olusegun Obasanjo. So for Buhari, yes, it meant well for Nigeria. But it gave so much latitude to some people he trusted, ended up messing up. I give an example of somebody like Emefiele, who he trusted so much, but then we have seen what has been happening to Emefiele. Buhari is somebody who believes that, yes, if I appoint you, you should be able to operate in that space with little or no supervision. So, but then some of them took advantage of that and actually messed up. Another person is the aviation minister, Adi Serika, who went to paint a plane, Ethiopia airline plane, and brought it to Nigeria for display at huge cost, and say that one is Air Nigeria or Nigeria Air, whatever. So in those areas, yes, we could say his supervision was
curious how that matter seemed to
himself.
Yeah, Majid, sorry to interject, but it's just curious how that matter seemed to have just slid under the carpet. We're not hearing, you know, how much of an investigation is going to that failed Nigeria project during his time. But let me come back to Doc and just ask, you are an economic expert. Is there an economic legacy in his democratic era as leader that you can pinpoint? I mean, during his military era, we know about war against indiscipline. What slogan do you think will come to mind when you think of former President Buhari's legacy economically?
Well, I think that what you can say for him is the fact that he was very concerned about people's welfare. He was very conscious. It's not that we all know that subsidy was a problem. Subsidy was being misapplied. And there were also issues with it in terms of transparency with subsidy, but he didn't want to touch it. You know, so he didn't touch it, and he carried subsidy until his last day in office because he knew certainly what was going to happen. And so when this government came on board and they moved subsidy, and we all see what we are going through. So he did that. So he had some fellow feelings, and he knew and was be careful. About you know, the results his policies would have on the citizenry. And so you float the naira like we did, and there's no market for naira in Nigeria. So you float the naira, and now it's going to crash. If naira crashes, you know, so you're going to have what you have today. And if, for instance, we do not pull back, you know, from the brink, by now, I mean, I don't know if this country will still be there, because the crisis that was looming then, you know, something unbelievable. We have been able to commit suicide and so on and so forth. The hardship in the land, and so it's a good thing that they pulled back. And then whether in fact we're going to be able to get things corrected, that's another matter. So I think that his legacy, you can say, he should concern, but then you cannot look at his policies from where I am and say, well, definitely this is where, because he was consumed with insurrections and so on and so forth. You know, we all thought that given his background as a military person, I was only able to solve the banditry, you know, Boko Haram and so on and so forth, but it got worsened, you know, under his dispensation.
I'm not quite sure if I'm going to get to
Hamas crisis.
Doc, I want to move to Majid and just ask about we have a new administration on the ground. He was the previous administration, and there were concerns about his long absence during his presidency. We've had some of that seen in this new administration. What are some of the lessons you would ordinarily hope that his time in office, considering that this current administration, majority of them worked with him, were fellow politicians like him in his time, what lessons do you think they would be taking from his time on the throne?
As we have seen, Buhari was able to remove subsidy at the wee hours of his administration. I left that baggage for Tinubu to deal with. And Tinubu took that bold step on day one of his assumption of office, removed subsidy. And it was, I mean, he's been battling with that. Removal of subsidy, yes, has stabilized the petroleum sector to some extent. And for a very long time in Nigeria, you see that states are not finding it difficult to pay salaries any longer. And also, I mean, you have seen some states now paying arrears of pension of civil servants. it's all thanks to the removal of subsidy. But then there can't be any pain without no gain. There can't be any gain without no pain. Yes, we expect that things will still get better. Some of the policy thoughts of the Buhari administration are being jettisoned by the Tinubu administration, especially the flotation of the Naira. Buhari was able to cushion effects of the Naira exchange by using the Naira, using our foreign reserves to defend the Naira. But under Tinubu,
that is from where you are looking at the optics, Majid. A lot of persons will argue with you on that score, that however great his policies may be, the impact is not as, it's not as positive for Nigerians, the ordinary Nigerian on the streets, and he needs to step up. But gentlemen, that's where we can, that's how much we can take for now. Thank you so much for giving us your time.